this morning, one of the things I want to do is bring this place out of the closet, you know. And I'm going to call the sign painter. I'll call him right away sometime this week and have him make a new sign for up there that says the New Age Christian Village Church, and see what happens, you know. Just let him know what the heck's going to... Yeah. You think there's enough room on that sign for it to fit in there? I think if he redoes it, you know, maybe does it in block letters. Well, that's good. I wanted to get your opinion, huh?
It had to be smaller. You're going to put in 6 more letters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see what he said. Okay. Anyhow, we're doing Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, in the mystical love story, a love letter that's written between what we call God and you. And let's get on with it. Page 575, Little Bibles, Little Books, Song of Songs, chapter 3, verse 9. And in chapter 3, verse 9, it says, King Solomon made himself a chariot of the wood of Lebanon. Okay? Now, everything you're looking here, I mean, King Solomon made himself a chariot of the wood of Lebanon. The word Solomon is the first word we're going to look at, okay? And Solomon, the word Solomon means peace. The word Solomon means peace. It's the ruling force is the king. So that peace becomes the ruling force in your life as you enter into meditation and you move yourselves above the realm of the carnal mind. Peace becomes the ruling force and is lifted by soul energy, which is the chariot. The chariot is soul energy. It's, you know, what you commonly call kundalini. It's that energy within, and it is lifted by the soul energy. And notice it's a chariot of wood. Wood is the desire of the astral plane, the desire of higher consciousness. So basically, look what you've seen in a first little verse of totally coded cosmic code. King Solomon made himself a chariot of the wood of Lebanon. The kingdom of peace is conveyed upward by the desires of the higher mind, is what's being said. The kingdom of peace is conveyed upward by the desire of the higher mind. You have to have the desire to do this, or it won't happen. That's the first thing. You have to want to raise your consciousness. And if you have the desire, the energy is within you to bring peace as a ruling force into your life. Even in the midst of all of the chaos, it doesn't make any difference because you still have peace because you know where the center is, you know what the truth is, you know that this thing comes out right, and you're part of the change. You're part of the tremendous change that, you know, goes on in the world and in the universe. And so the kingdom of peace is conveyed upward by the desires of the higher mind. Let's look at 3:10. Song of Songs 3:10, he made the pillars thereof of silver, the bottom thereof of gold, the covering of it of purple. Now obviously, you see, it's very easy to see, first of all, that when you talk King Solomon made himself a chariot, and then the next line is he made pillars of silver. A chariot does not have pillars. Okay? So what's being said? The description is that the aspect of yourselves that carries you to the kingdom of peace is supported by what? Pillars through silver. Pillars are that which support the foundation, okay? And this is interesting because contained within that little line there is a real testament. Silver in mysticism means consciousness, all right? That means consciousness. Human consciousness, see? So that basically what's being said here is the higher realms are of natural man. See, gold is God. Silver is man. Both mean consciousness, the God consciousness. So the raising of the desires to the kingdom of peace is by human consciousness. That was the very point that Jesus Christ made to Thomas when he said to Thomas, hey, feel my hands, put your finger in my side. In other words, what was being conveyed by the Bible is all of this stuff happens inside of human beings. It's not something that's hocus pocus. It's not something that happens on another planet. It's something that happens inside of human beings. The only place all of this can occur is within you, within the consciousness or the mind of men and women. All right? And that's what's being said here. So it is supported through the consciousness. In other words, that the way that you're going to reach this aspect of peace, the way you're going to reach this place of peace is through consciousness. There's no other way. You can't read about it. You can't sing about it. You can't, you have to raise consciousness levels above where they're at the present time in order to reach this place which is being symbolically discussed here in the Song of Songs. The raising of the desires to the kingdom of peace, then, is by human consciousness. Or else it would have said, it's by gold, but it doesn't. It said it's by silver, pillars of silver. The foundation, the strength comes from human consciousness. Okay? The moon is also, it's an interesting thing if you look at how symbolisms are used, because the moon also portrays emotions and it portrays human consciousness. The reason being that what is reflected on the moon is reflected back to you. The light of the moon is actually a reflection of what, is being reflected upon it. And you've heard, remember the song, By the Light of the Silvery Moon, and exactly the same. Silver and the moon are always used together in ancient mysticism to talk about human consciousness. See? Now, the lowest part of the divine mind, the bottom part, is what touches the highest human. So, in other words, where it says, look what it says there, 3:10, it says, He made the pillars thereof of silver, the bottom thereof of gold. Because here is the lowest part of the divine consciousness is what touches you. And that lowest part is gold. That, in other words, is God. The lowest part of divine consciousness which touches the highest part of you. So your silver, which is the highest part of your mind, and then God is gold, which is the lowest part of the divine mind, so there's where the two meet. Gold and silver. Silver and gold, God in you. And that's what it's talking about in mysticism when it's using it. Now, in Song of Songs, chapter 3, verse 10, it says, and the covering up, it is purple. That is divine consciousness of wisdom. Purple, the word purple means regal kingship, wisdom, understanding. So here what we've seen so far is we've seen peace. We've seen the ruling force, that peace takes over the higher realms of consciousness. Soul energy drives that peace. It is all happening through human consciousness, and it brings understanding of a divine and a higher nature. Not the understanding that we normally have, but understanding of higher realms of things. It's the things that I hear you people discussing. It's amazing sometimes, but as I sit out here and I'll, maybe after a service or something, after a Tuesday night or whatever, you can hear people discussing things, and you're discussing things on this plane that you never knew before. And yet it's very easy for you to talk about them now. You start talking about things that have to do with the psyche. You start talking about things, manifestations, visions, things that you felt, things that you dreamed, and all of this stuff, and you're attributing it to rationality. In other words, it's a normal thing. Where years ago you never could discuss it. Well, now that means that you've given the kingship to it. You've given the respectability of it. It's clothed in purple. It's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to hide from. It's something that you can't wait to share with another person. Even as strange as it may have sounded years ago, today it's very normal to you. Okay? Now in 3:10 again, the midst thereof being paved with love for the daughters of Jerusalem. So here we have the description of our movement to the kingdom of peace. Look what we have. The desire to find it. I just wanted to show you how this is used real quickly. We have the symbolisms that are used. We have the desire to find it, and the desire is wood. Okay? The desire is wood. The desire to find that is wood. To touch the person of God, which is gold, okay? Via the human consciousness, which is silver. So you have wood, gold, and silver. By the divine mind, by the higher consciousness, we'll call that by the divine, which is purple. And paved now with love. So there you have wood, gold, silver, purple, and love to describe human consciousness raising itself to the levels of what we call God. See? And that is how mysticism, that's how we were using a lot of things this morning, how we use in our own phrases the symbolisms of the language. But it says here, this is what is interesting. All of this is put together then. See, all of this is a lot of words. And how do you translate this? You translate this by sitting on the floor and going om, or closing your eyes and lifting yourself up into a semi-electric ecstasy of the mind. But in some way it has to be conveyed. Okay? And so it's conveyed in this deep symbolism. It's conveyed in this deep mysticism, saying to people, what happens, what can happen to you if you'll agree to do this? And this is the point. All of this, then, this peace, this desire, human consciousness, God consciousness, all of this coming together is expressed in the song for what purpose? Look at 3:10 again. For the daughters of Jerusalem. Okay? Jerusalem, as Paul says, Jerusalem which is above is free and is the mother of us all. It is free spirit. It is the higher realm of God's spirit. And the daughters of Jerusalem are the desires of the spirit to find God's holy place. So here then you have the desires of the spirit. So then, as you have a desire to lift yourself into this realm, you have a desire to cut yourself away from all of your traditional concepts, cut yourself away from your job, cut yourself away from your family. You get the most fakakta from your family. Cut yourself away from the government. You don't want any rule, you don't want any boundaries anymore to separate you. You don't want any government saying, oh, you can't be nice to those people because they're our enemies. You don't have any enemies anymore. You want to cut yourself away from all organization, all things that place you into a position of bondage. You cut yourself away by driving. Your desires are to lift yourself. And what this is saying is that there is now something available for all of us in this Aquarian age, and it is love, and it is peace, and it is healing, and it is divine wisdom, and it is all packed in there, for one thing, for the desires of those who raise themselves into the spiritual ecstasy. For the daughters of Jerusalem, for the desires of the Spirit. In other words, your desires will not go unfulfilled. Your desires will not go unfulfilled. If you have a desire, not for yourself, but to touch this, to be a part of what's going on, to be a part of the change, to be a part of the cleansing, to be a part of the healing in the world, for the children, for the animals, for the ecology, for all that is earth, for all that is God. If you have a desire for that, there is everything, wood, gold, silver, purple, love, packed into you to fulfill those desires and to make things happen in your life. And the things are happening again. And it doesn't make any difference how old you are. It doesn't make any difference how young you are. Because when you enter into that holy place, there is no age. I was reading today how Einstein was explaining the theory of space travel going twice the speed of light. And Einstein said, he said, if you went the speed, if you were 20 years old and you went twice the speed of light, when you got back, you'd only be 10. And they said, that's ridiculous. He says, I know, but it's true anyhow. They said, how could this be? He says, I don't know, but it is. See? If you got into some kind of a craft, wouldn't this be great, though? Say you're about 65, and you went twice the speed of light, and you come back and you're 32. You actually, if you go twice the speed of light, you actually start to go back in time. You do. And so they said to Einstein, well, explain how this works. He says, I can't. It just works. See? Because they said, this is ridiculous. He says, it is ridiculous, but nonetheless, it's true. See? It's a funny thing. But yeah, Albert, I mean, being a man of science, and you shake your head up and down, it's true. If you're 40 years old and you take a trip for 20 years and you go twice the speed of light, when you get back, you'll be 20. And everybody else will be 60. In other words, if you have friends and they're all 40, and you get in this ship and you go twice the speed of light for 20 years, when you get back, you'll be 20 and they'll be 60. Say, hey, what are you doing with your hair? You must be taking some. Yeah, well, you know, but this is the way it is. Do you know what I'm saying? What I'm saying, this stuff that sounds so bizarre is very normal to the universe. We don't know nothing. And people sit here and sing Amazing Grace, and they sing these songs, and they pray, and they say a Hail Mary, or they say a Praise the Lord, or whatever they say, and they don't know anything about going twice the speed of sound. That's what God is all about. This is the wild stuff that can happen. Say, how can you live forever? Say, every 10 years you take a trip that's twice the speed of light, and you'll come back, and you know what I mean? You put a kid on there 10 years old, send him twice the speed of light, he comes back, he isn't even born yet. I heard that. But you see what I'm saying to you, and this is what's so neat about this. Now you begin to understand that God is science and science is God. That's what the phrase cosmic Christ is all about. The phrase cosmic Christ means that God is provable, and the things that are really God are bizarre, amazing stuff. And you know, this is what, if you want to get involved with God, then you got to get involved with, you know, time travel, space travel, travel in the speed of light. This is wild stuff, but this stuff is real. And so when you start thinking of the possibilities, Albert, then what's a miracle? What isn't possible then? Anything is possible, you know? So that's just something, the things that you can look forward to. Okay, let's look at 3:11 on Song of Solomon. Go forth, O you daughters of Zion. You know, I never saw such a hard thing to erase as this. Why this should be so easy, but it's all black and look at that doesn't come off. What is everybody coughing? What? You all have, is it too hot in here? Then you're getting, all right. Now, let's go ahead, okay? Go forth, O daughters of Zion. Zion is the living soul that touches God. Okay? Zion is the part of you when you get into an ecstasy, an out-of-body experience or whatever, you say, oh, you know, I don't know what happened, I don't know where I went, I just disappeared. That's Zion. You've been on Zion. Mount Zion. That's what Mount Zion is. You've been in the higher realms, and you've actually touched that which is creation. You've touched that which you call God. See? And the daughters of Zion are the desires of the exalted realms of the human mind. And those aspects are called forth. I mean, these things really happened. They will really happen to you. I had one out-of-body experience in my life. And I was sitting in a chair, and I got out of the chair, and I grabbed onto it and shook myself to get back, because I got scared. You know, all of a sudden, it flashed before my mind, how am I going to get back? I didn't know. So I wrecked the whole thing. I've never had one since. I think I did have one little one here sitting, because I remember in one of the meditations, I was here, and I started to move out this way a little bit. But, you know, that's not it's not for me to do or whatever. I didn't, you know, instigate that. These are the things that happen. But the point being, okay, that as these things are called forth for you, and you're receptive to what's coming, especially in this Aquarian age that we covered this morning. I have never, in all of the things that we've done, and I'll tell you this, I have never had so much comment or interest as came forth this morning. And we've done a lot of crazy stuff on a lot of different things, but I've never had so many people who came up this morning and they wanted copies of this or had questions about it, because it's a provable fact. It's just like Albert shows on his computer when he showed these stars. It doesn't make any difference whether anybody believes it or not. The cross and the manger are there, and they can be seen around Christmas time, and it's a fact because they're in the sky. You know, nobody can say, "Well, I don't believe that." You know, then you're a. Oh, I was going to say something. You should believe it, because you have to believe it. Okay, go forth, O you daughters of Zion. Now here we're saying the desires of the higher mind. What do you want to do? And behold, King Solomon, with the crown where his mother crowned him in the day of his espousals and in the day of the gladness of his heart. Behold the kingdom of peace. That's what we all seek. And we go forth and behold the kingdom of peace with the crown wherewith his mother crowned him. Mother is the, what is it? Mother is Isis, the queen mother. Oh, see, this is the beautiful part. And I don't know how you get this through these born-again heads, that the crowning of God within is totally feminine. When you reach this point of the crown, of that higher realm of consciousness, you move into the feminine part of God. It is the mother principle of God. It is the queen of heaven. It has nothing to do with the father principle of God, because now you've exceeded the mind and you are in that which is the rapture of mother. Isis, spirit. The mother who crowns is the divine Isis, okay? And the crown is the exalted spirit within. So there you've got mother, which is the divine Mother, which is the divine spirit, and the crown, okay? And the crown is just what it says, right here at the top. The top. Let me show you something. Watch, come up and show you something. Go to Psalm 132, page 533. Keep your finger where you are in Song of Songs so we can get back. The crown. Many people in religious circles believe they're going to have a crown, and they really see, you know, like King Charles and all of these people with a crown on their head. And that's not what it means. It's talking about the highest part within you, the high part of consciousness. That's your crown. When you have achieved or received or touched that highest place within yourself and human consciousness, that's when you've got the crown. Okay? Look what it says in Psalm 132, verse 18. His enemies will I clothe with shame, but upon himself shall his crown flourish. The crown is going to flourish. In other words, that part of your brain which has been so inactive, other than for the self-propelled creative aspects, suddenly there is this flourishing. And you know, I don't think you give yourself enough credit for the progress that you've made. And even, you know, some of you folks don't realize, because you all mix with people of like mind, which is very good, but just get yourself into the middle of a crowd sometime of born-again people who have no idea what the heck you're talking about. They haven't the slightest idea. As soon as you start saying things, that they freak, because what are you talking about? You don't really understand how much you are already talking from that which is the crown, from the higher realms of consciousness, from the divine creative aspects of consciousness. Believe me, there's a bunch of people who come in and out of these doors who are extremely gifted in the things of the higher realms of God. Extremely gifted. But it's very hard to see when you're all of like mind. But boy, as I said, all you got to do is go across the church and sit in there for a while and start talking to the things you know. And you'll see, you know, you're a foreigner. You're from a different planet as far as they're concerned, because your whole idea and understanding is completely different. So the Spirit, the exalted feminine principle, gives forth the crown, which is the highest understanding. I think this will come to you best in go to page 543 and look at the book of Proverbs, and maybe I think this will come clear to you a little better if you see this, okay? Look at Proverbs chapter 4 on page 543, and I think what I'm trying to get through to you will come a little closer to you. Okay? Proverbs chapter 4. Now look at verse 9. See what it says? She shall give to your head an ornament of grace. A crown of glory shall she deliver to you. You see that? Okay. That's basically what's being discussed. It is the feminine God. It is the mother part of God which takes over. So when you ascend up into this Christ consciousness, the immediate thing you think of is Jesus, you know, and this rough guy. That's not where you're going. You're going up into the bosom of the mother God. The Isis, the Mary, the Queen of Heaven. That's what you enter into. When you come into meditation and you start feeling this beautiful softness, and it is a softness, and this sweet smell, you're into the bosom of the mother God, into the bosom of the feminine principle of God. Okay? So, now look at 3:11 on the Song of Solomon's again. Go forth, O you daughters of Zion. We know that's the desires of the highest mind. And behold, King Solomon, that's peace, wherewith his mother crowned him, and that's the mother Isis. That's where we are touched by that, which is the higher touch of God. In the day of his espousals and in the day of the gladness of our heart. In the day of his espousal. Okay? That's beautiful. Because you have to be married. There is a part within you that as you raise it up into the higher realms of consciousness, it ceases to be Joan or Bill or Al or Lynn or Ethel or whomever, and it starts to be something entirely different, because that part of you now has a name, and it's called Shekinah. And Shekinah rises within you, male and female, finds her way to the chamber, and the intercourse occurs, and that's the espousal. See, that crown of peace, that crown of life, that crown of love is given to you as part of your wedding ornament, your wedding dress or your wedding gown, and that comes when you're part. See, the feminine part of you is the part that intercourses with the masculine part of God. So it is the Spirit that intercourses and receives the crown, and it is that feminine part called by the ancients Shekinah, that glory. See? So it's not the male part. The male part of the human psyche is your mind. It doesn't make any difference if you're male or female. Your mind is male. Your spirit is female. Makes no difference. See? But it is the female part that is transformed, and when it raises itself up into nirvana, when you are separated from the thoughts of your mind, it is no longer you, it is now Shekinah who becomes intercourse, and that's the espousal. When your center marries the Christ, say, you receive the crown. That's the Christ nature. That's the divine wisdom that we're talking about. And in the day of the gladness of his heart, which is, and in the word heart is always the center of consciousness. That's one of the things in Christianity that they always have difficulty with. They always say that Jesus or God is in my heart, and they always point here. That's not, but they're pointing to the pump. See? That's not the point. The heart of, when you say, let's get to the heart of the matter, what do you mean? Let's get to the center of it. Let's get into where the truth lies. And the point is, when the word heart is used in Scriptures, it's talking about the center. That point of consciousness, not the heart in your chest which pumps the blood around, but the center of consciousness where truth lies, okay? So that is the place of joy, the center. Okay, we've gone through 3 chapters of the Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon, and here we get to, I think this is a good part. Here we start describing the parts of the female anatomy in ways of spiritualism, and a nice smile came over Joe Starr's face, so I think he's been waiting for been showing up all night. He says, let's get to the good stuff, okay? He's got his Playboy Bible and everything, so here we go. All right. Yeah, she got a picture of you. Don't you turn around, Joe, and say hello to everybody. What do you mean, wait a minute? What is she doing, wait a minute? That's him. So this is his best night. Okay. Here we go. Chapter 4, Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, and it's on page 575. Behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. Now, this is a communion of peace. Notice something here. What do you have here? Turn on the television and watch them. You have constantly the second coming with Armageddon. You have the devil being cast into fire. You have all of you people who don't get saved being cast into fire. Everybody in the world who is not saved by going to the Protestant church and uttering these words is going to be cast in fire. The whole thing is violence, 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 threats and fears. But look at this, what is the communion of God. Behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. And look at the next line. You have dove eyes within your locks. You have dove eyes. Can you break that code? You have dove eyes within your locks. Okay? Well, let's break the code. Because if you go running past this, then you miss. I don't know. There's not too many people sitting here. But all of you folks on television and all of you sitting here, I'll bet you have never read this Song of Solomon and stopped and took each word and analyzed and broke it down so that the message would come to you. And I'll tell you this, you've probably gone to Bible studies and the same thing has happened. You've never, ever stopped. So let's take a look at it. A dove is peace, virgin consciousness, absolute love and peace, and it flies up into the higher mind, so it symbolizes that which is the virgin consciousness, the dove. The eyes are the symbol of mental perception. Mental perception. Oh, you know how to spell it, okay? Mental perception. In other words, this is where you say, oh, now I see. Now I understand. I'm enlightened. I begin to finally understand what's going on here. See, and the lock of hair is intuition. So the lock of hair is intuition. It's instinct, if you would, divine instinct. So the natural instinct is to be aware of the highest love, this love of God. See, so I soar upward to see face to face. This is my instinct. Your hair, what has happened here is that peace, the realms of peace and virgin consciousness open to you that which is the enlightenment to God. And this is an instinctive thing. All of a sudden, it's not a question of you have to work for it. It's a question of something that comes. It's a question of something that all of a sudden I say, gee, I begin to understand this, or I've got this feeling, or, I thought of this, and this is what so many of the things you say. Like the dove, the eyes, and the lock of hair. In the cult of the Nazarenes, that lock of hair which would grow outward would symbolize the growth of the higher realms of consciousness, and it would be symbols of power. Who was it that Samson, who had that lock of hair cut, and he lost his power. So here is that point of that which is the higher growth, which gives you the instinctive understanding of the things of God, that what allows you to see is enlightened, and that which is peace. So you have the dove, you have the eyes, you have the lock of hair. Now look what it says here. Some of you, if you were told this in a love tryst, if you're in the back of a car at a drive-in movie, I don't know if you would take this the right way, but anyhow, your hair is as a flock of goats. You know, now you might get upset with your boyfriend or whomever. You know, and somebody might be telling you that you're a mess. You know, hey, do something. You know, take a bath or a wash or something because your hair's like a flock of goats. But notice here, your hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Mount Gilead. Now, hair is faith, the qualities which grow from the higher mind. So let's call that, okay? Hair is from the higher mind. There was two types of Nazarene sect, however. The Samson sect, which was of Jesus' Nazarene sect, the hair which grew symbolized the growth from the higher mind, of spirit. The Apostle Paul was of a Nazarene sect that flowed out of Dionysius, which was completely different. They looked at hair as growth from the carnal mind, and they cut it. The Buddhists do the same thing. They cut the hair because the hair symbolized that's what grows out of their own intelligence. So you have two different types. In this particular type, we're looking at the sect of Nazarene, where the hair symbolizes the growth from the higher mind. Now, notice what said, your hair is as a flock of goats. A goat, on the lower aspect of the carnal mind, is that which is a stubborn nature. You know, you know, I can be a goat. Amazing as that may seem, every once in a while, I have a stubborn streak. Yeah. And each one of you, you know, I can look and point to each one of you, and each one of you have that goat nature where you're just not, you know, a goat is, you never see them, they try to pull them, come on, let's go, you know, or a mule. But there's a higher realm, because this is on the mountains of Gilead. So we're not talking about the stubborn nature here. The goat we're talking about, which is on the higher nature, is in symbolism determination. To go, to climb, to ascend up into the higher realms. Did you ever see a mountain goat as they climb up the craggy rocks? No fear whatsoever. They're not afraid of climbing up into the higher realms. Christians are scared to death to climb up into these higher realms. But if you are the goats of Gilead, you climb sure-footed on the rocks higher and higher and higher and higher with no fear whatsoever. And not, what happened? If you take a goat down into the desert, it would die. I mean, it's out of its element. These mountain goats of Gilead are only happy when they are up, standing on the rock, standing on the highest rock, in the highest places where they can see forever. That's what's being referred to here. And so your hair, or that which is coming out of your higher mind, is that which stands sure-footed in the realms of the mountain of God. Standing, in other words, don't you understand what's being said? Standing or sitting or driving yourself up into the higher realms of consciousness is absolutely normal to you. You're very at home in higher meditation. Where, you know, you bring some people in here and they'll all freak out. You know, I couldn't get used to that, you know, they're out of their element. They're not a goat from the mountain of Gilead. That's what's being talked about here. But you are. You're a goat from Gilead. You're very much at home. The higher it is, the better you like it. In fact, some of you say, man, I didn't get high enough. I want to get higher. I want to go higher. Because you're sure-footed up there. You're at home there. Don't you see what's being said? I don't know if you do or not, but that's what's being said. So the goats from Gilead. And what does the word Gilead mean? Gilead, the word Gilead means the hill of testimony. The word Gilead means the hill of testimony. So here then, as you mount up this mountain, there where you testify to the magnificent things that are coming of your mind, the magnificent new ideas that you have. And it's not only the things that you're learning, it's the things that you're being cut away from. You turn on the television or you turn on these born-again shows and you look at them and you cannot believe the insanity. I mean, when you hear and you realize about the goat and the horse of Capricorn and Sagittarius, and you understand about the crucifixion through the Southern Cross and the entombment of the Son and then the birth of the Son on December the 25th, and then you look at these things, what they have created. They've made stories with goats, real goats and real sheep and people in mangers and all of this stuff, and they have taken and totally obliterated the possibilities of your entering in and becoming the prime character in this. And they act these things out, and then they debate them. Where do you think the star was? Well, I think it was Venus. I think it was a nova. Do you think she was really a virgin? And I saw in one newspaper article, well, maybe it wasn't born in the manger. Maybe it was born downstairs somewhere. This was in the newspapers, and I think they meant it was born downstairs because they used to bring the animals and go into all of this stuff, not realizing that what they're looking at is astrological. Has nothing to do with goats, has nothing to do with mangers, has nothing to do with virgins riding on donkeys. Why didn't this guy, if he had to go pay the tax, go by himself? Why'd he bring a pregnant woman 400 miles on a donkey for cocktail already? Why? Would you do this? Is this the nice thing to do? He had to go register, not her. And so she's got a pregnant woman who is in her 9th month, and he's got her on a donkey riding 400 miles. What a guy this is. And they make him a saint. Jeez. I have trouble here. I don't even have. I got a queen, a nurse. She's not pregnant. That you know, sometimes I can't even drive. We've driven far enough. And she's driving in a 1990, whatever it is, Grand Prix, you know, and all this. I've driven far enough. My back is starting to get me. And here's a woman pregnant. The guy takes her on a donkey. Boy, would that be grounds for divorce or what? Did you ever think of this? You never thought of that. These are the things that come into my head. What is this guy taking this woman? Because he was the guy that had to go for the register, not her. And he takes her pregnant on a donkey. Now, what would the gynecologist say to this? I would like some of you to say, you know, maybe we'll say, well, my daughter is pregnant. And her husband is into, we'd like to put her on a donkey ride. Now, what would he say? You know, so I mean, don't look at this stuff, and literal. It's just bizarre. It is so stupid. It is so bizarre that grown, intelligent people, I would believe, are making this into a story like this and not understanding the cosmic truth of this. It is unbelievable. And you know what? We've all done it. We all have been part of this, and we've missed the truth of this, and instead we're all, you know, the guy, the donkey, and the kids, and all of this stuff. And I believe that's why God sent Santa Claus, to take some of your attention off of this bizarre story that you made up about Ding Dong with the shepherds coming and the wise guys with myrrh and frankincense into somebody's house. Anyhow, God. So, the statement that we see is that the growth within to the higher comes by the determined effort to climb. You've got to be determined. And determined means you get off of your seat and you come down here. Or, you know, because people say, I meditate at home. No, you don't. Some of you may, but most of you don't. You don't. And you sit and you listen a little bit, and you're gone. Last night I went to complete oblivion. I sat in a chair, because I have to be very careful, because my easy chair makes me seasick sometimes, so I have to be very careful. I woke up, and they had something about Key West, and Joan says, well, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you record? I said, I couldn't even move, you know. Was this a meditation? You hear some people here, they meditate. I have had people come snore through the whole meditation and come up to me and say, my God, that was heavy. I really got out of it. You got nothing. You went to sleep for an hour, for 40 minutes. Sound asleep. So you've got to be determined. You've got to be like a mountain goat. And you've got to climb up the rocks and keep climbing upward, knowing just as you don't have a goat looking down saying, God, that's awful high. I wonder if I'll fall. Hey, you get up as high as you can get, Albert. You know what he'll do? If he's got a space between him and 10,000 feet drop, he'll jump to the next spot. And he's got little kids following him. Does the goat say, now, this isn't good to have children involved in this because they could fall and hurt themselves? The old goat with his whiskers says, come on, Sonny, let's go. And they all jump up into the higher rung. I'm talking about thousands of feet above whatever it is. Thousands of feet. Watch, let's go with me for a minute. I'll show you a scripture. Page 517, Psalm 104. Psalm 104, page 517, and let's look at it. Okay? Now, I don't know what the word conies is because I didn't look it up. Verse 18. The high hills are a refuge for the wild goats. Now, the next one is good in the rocks for the conies. So I don't know what the conies, you have to look that up. But the high hills are the refuge for the wild goats. So be sure-footed in your climb. Now, here's another sexy statement that I think you'll like. This is another look at this beautiful girl, or she's looking at him, whatever. Get this. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep. Some are black and some are white. Oh, my God. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep. I guess that's because they, they come out at night and they go into the thing. Got to put them back into the pen. That are even shorn, which come up from the washing. Okay? All right. Now, that's really a cryptic line. In other words, that's a coded line. Teeth relate to the mouth, which is the word. That's the impulse that fills the mind. And sheep are spiritually born thoughts. So you have teeth, which is the mouth, which is the word, and you have sheep, which are thoughts. In this particular instance, they're divine thoughts. Now the reason that the teeth are put there, because it was very important for them to get in the fact that they are evenly shorn. Evenly shorn means balance. Libra. Okay, there's a balance. And what's being, for instance, if you look, I won't send you there, but if you look in Proverbs 11:1, it says, a false balance is abomination to the Lord. In Job 31:6, it says, let me be weighed in an even balance. So the word, the teeth of the Spirit, brings a balance to your life, both physically and spiritually. There's a balance. There's an understanding of the duality of things. But what we were saying this morning, and some of you were not here, and this is being a different tape, that it's very important for us to realize that bad things happen. And it's all a very, very normal thing. And every one of us get involved in these things. And Buddha said it's important for us to benefit from these things, begin to learn. And he told the story. He said, my horse got loose and ran away. And the guy said, well, that's too bad. He says, no, it was good because she met 18 other horses and brought them back, so now I've got 19. The guy said, well, that's good. He says, no, it was bad because my son was riding one of the horses and fell off and broke his leg. I said, well, that's terrible. He says, no, that was good because the army came around to hire people for the war, and they wouldn't take him because of the broken leg. So it means that in all of the negative things that have happened, that we benefit by learning from them and charting new directions. We cry through them, we get scared through them. During the period that we're going through them, we don't like them, we don't want them to happen to us, but they do happen. They happen just as normally as you have a beautiful sunny day and you look to the west and there's thick black clouds and all hell breaks loose within 20 minutes and there's lightning and people's houses are going on fire. It's not something that's good, but it's just something that is. Okay? It's just absolutely normal. And so we have to benefit from those things. So that means there has to be a balance of understanding. You can't come in here and be, a complete spiritual thing in which you fly around in osmosis. You've got to be a human being. And you cannot be a human being and neglect the meditation. So there has to be a balance. So it talks about the word that comes through you is producing the thoughts that bring you into a balance of what life really is. Somebody asked this morning about, how can you do this with the carnal mind? Because when we say the carnal mind, sometimes you get to the feeling, well, gee, that's evil. It's not evil. It's an absolute important, you cannot be a human being without that left side of your brain. You can't function. It's very, very beautiful, very, very necessary. The point being, however, that as we begin to think laterally and as we go into meditation, we are fed into that same left side from the right side. So it starts to produce for us. It will do its own things. It will make its mistakes. It will cause us trouble. But that is also part of the duality of nature, of life. Sometimes, it's just like this trip that the vacation was lousy, but I had been getting bored with Key West. Well, I won't be bored with it now. I can't wait to get back there. It's changed to give me a whole new perspective on how valuable that 2 weeks is that I didn't have. And so we from a difficult experience, we find something beautiful occurred out of it. And then sometimes you look and you'll think of somebody that has a terrible cancer. You see a little child and is born in a terrible way. You say, my God, there is nothing whatsoever good that'll come out of that. And in the objectivity of human thought, you're absolutely right. But everything always does. Somebody will lose a child. Somebody will have a child die at a very young... But there is one person now on the face of the earth that can instantly relate to another person who goes into that same type of a situation. From the heart, that person can just reach out and embrace. There is help. So all of these things do in some way. There's a point in the Bible that I never understood it said God works all things according to his purpose. Well, basically, I guess that's what's meant by that, that even in the midst of all of the most difficult things, which are horrendous, realizing that nobody intended them for you, they just happen, that somehow, when it's all over and the dust has settled, somebody will benefit in some way or another because of it, you know. So there is that need for balance. Now, look at, once again, in the Song of Solomon, chapter 4, it says, the teeth are like a flock of sheep that are even shorn, which come up from the washing. All right? An Egyptian idea is all that was required of the deceased was that his heart should be balanced exactly through the symbol of the law. Okay? And the washing, Rashnu, which is Hindu, is the washing with the balance of the spirits, which renders no favor on either side. So the word here then is balance, and the word washing, let's say if you can think of anything that would be symbolically close to what is okay? All right, thanks. The washing, if you look in the New Testament, you'll see the object of foot washing. All right? Now, and when we were at Christmas, and somebody asked me, can you tell us a symbol that is used, that people use literally, which is actually a mystical symbol? I said, yeah, foot washing is a perfect example of that. Because there are churches where they have foot washing ceremonies. Okay? Now, and the person there had said, well, you know, I think that means you humble yourself to help other people. That is not going to bring the Christ to do the helping. It's still going to be you. It is going to totally eliminate that which is the important part of this thing, and that is finding the Christ mind. Foot washing is this. The foot is the part of your body that touches the earth. In symbolism, the earth means the lower mind. And what is then being said by foot washing is the part of you that touches the lower mind should be cleansed. The thoughts must be washed away. The fears must be washed away. The guilt must be washed away. Everything that comes off onto your mind from that which is the lower carnal must be washed away. That's what foot washing really is. And so when this talks about coming up from the washing, see, there was an interesting thing that occurred in the foot washing segment with Peter and Jesus. Jesus made this statement to Peter in John 13:7. He says, what I do you don't understand now, but you shall know later. Did you ever see that? Did you? It's important for you to see that. Go to page 879 in that foot washing thing in the book of John chapter 13. John chapter 13 and verse 7. And Peter said, you know, I don't want you washing my feet. This is a disgrace. And see, that's what the people don't know, and yet they still carry the same thing out. They're doing foot washings, not understanding the mystical implications of this. Here it was Jesus washing the feet of Peter, but then he turns to him, and look what he says in verse 7, John 13. What I do you know not now, but you shall know hereafter. Okay? You'll learn. You'll understand as you grow. So, and if it was just a question of humbling yourself and doing something as a symbol, that's not what he was after. He was after the mystical understanding that the foot is the symbol of that which touches the earth is the symbol of the mind, and what Jesus was saying is that part of you that touches the mind has to be cleansed. And how did Jesus say you cleanse that part of you that touches the mind? Take no thought. When you take no thought, you're actually doing foot washing. But then, you know, are you still there? Did you go? You didn't go away, did you? From John 13, did you stay there for a minute? On page 879. The reason I want you to see this is very important because look, Peter in verse 8, John 13, verse 8. After Jesus said, "You don't know what's going on here," Peter says, "You shall never wash my feet." And look what Jesus said: "If I wash you not, you have no part with me." Huh? Do you know what's being said there? If you do not wash away the thoughts of your mind, you'll never have an encounter with Christ. You see that? And the point, you see, that's why it's so important. Sometimes when we get rushed or something, I skip and I say, I'll read it. No, it's important that you see it. Here's Jesus saying, if you don't, You better get your head squared on straight about what I'm doing here. And if you don't do this, you'll never have any part with me. Huh? And Jesus wasn't saying, you got to go around washing people's feet and that'll turn me on. He's saying that part of you that touches the mind and is stained has got to be cleansed. And when it is, then you'll be one with me. Because it only happens in the virgin consciousness. Do you see how one thing goes together with another? Do you remember this morning what I thought was a beautiful statement? So many people say that Jesus is going to do this and Jesus is going to do that and Jesus will do this for you and Jesus will do that for you. And what did Jesus say in the Bible this morning? Who made me judge over you? Who said I was to decide for you? Decide. See? Those are those the little statements in the Bible that nobody ever tells you. Nobody ever showed you that. Jesus never wanted to make decisions or deal or make anything. He said, who made me in charge of you? Take care of yourself. Right? Got enough to do here. I'm going up to heaven and all this stuff. Now, real quick, and you've been patient. I know it's a little bit late, but we only have just one little thing to do. Song of Songs, chapter 4, verse 2, and we'll just spare this out. Thy teeth are like a flock of sheep that are even short. Now, you understood that there's a balance that comes through the inner word, your understanding of both the physical, spiritual, the mental, and mind aspects of God, which come up from the washing. Now, you realize that coming up from the washing means your consciousness is raised by the washing away of that part of you that touches the lower mind, all the stain of those thoughts. Whereof every one bear twins, and none is barren among them. See, that's the duality, the balance between the positive and the negative body and spirit. There's a balance there. And those are the twins. That's Gemini. That's the duality. And that's also very, very important. You've got to have that balance in the same way that you've got to have male and female within you. See? That's to be aware, see, to give birth to this renewed understanding. And we'll wrap it up by saying, and none is barren among them. Look, when you have the Word, which is the inner impulse that flows through the nirvanic mind, you have the balance, you understand nature as well as spirit within yourself. You are washed clean from the stain of the lower thoughts, at least during those precious periods of meditation. Then the promise, none is barren within them. All then have that seed of life, which then explodes into the new birth of the child within, the Christ child within. Okay, thank you very much for being with us tonight and sharing in the Song of Songs. We're into the fourth. How many chapters are there? About 6 chapters in that? So we won't be too long with that, but it's an interesting thing. 8? Oh, so we're halfway through. Thank you very much, and we'll see